Hello everyone, how are you? I am absolutely shattered. So today I'm going to talk about sleep. As I've said before, I've suspected on and off over the years, I've looked into autism as potentially being what made me different. And at one point when I was researching it, one of the things I found was that my sleep patterns definitely tied in with autistic sleep patterns. So I don't sleep well. And I'm going to start with the middle bit and then go back and then jump to where we are now. So, when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when I turned 30, I was put on gabapentin and I started to sleep, and it was a very, very weird feeling for me because before that point, I had 3 or 4 decent nights sleep in my life. I vividly remember waking up from a night's sleep at my godfather's house as a child in the morning, and I'd gone to bed and now it was morning. That was the first good night's sleep in my memory. I'm not sure how old I was, but old enough that it really surprised me. I think I hadn't realised that was how some people sleep all the time. I didn't think that was a thing at all in the world. So I woke up on gabapentin and it was really similar to that. And I mentioned to another doctor later on, I really need my gabapentin because I can tell within half an hour if I've forgotten to take it, because if I've remembered to take it, within half an hour I will be feeling sleepy, I will ease into sleep, it will be great, I can sleep. Without the gabapentin, which bear in mind I was having for chronic pain, not for sleep things because it's not a sleep drug, without the gabapentin I can't sleep, I still don't sleep. The doctor pointed out to me it's not a sleep drug, it does not help you sleep, that is impossible for it to be helping you sleep. So I was starting to think, well, maybe it's a placebo then, but it works, so don't take this away from me. Don't take the placebo effect away from me. If that's why it lets me sleep, then don't take that away from me. I've never slept in my life, and this lets me get to sleep quickly, and it lets me stay asleep. Once I am asleep, yeah, I might wake up a couple of times in the night, but when I do wake up, I can fall back to sleep again. And for me, that's a little miracle. So yeah, the first night after waking up from gabapentin made me think so strongly of that night as a child at my godfather's house. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning I woke up, which was really early for me then, but now is very normal, life with a toddler. And I was so hyped up, it might have been even earlier. I was so hyped up, I went for a walk around my local area, and I got catcalled by somebody, and I just unleashed verbal diarrhea on him because I was in a very strange head place. Yeah, that was a nice morning to wake up. Yeah, so over time, the gabapentin effect meant that while I still fell asleep easily, I do wake up more frequently again. And then obviously having a child's messed everything up all over and anew. But I never slept as a child. I was a bad sleeper as a baby. I was not a good sleeper as a small child, and then my mum died when I was 5, and we just put it down to that. And then I became a very good reader. I was already a very good reader before my mum died, and I would have a stack of books by the side of the bed, and I would be reading them till 1, 2 in the morning. And I decided that the reason that I had trouble sleeping was because of the fact that I would read so late. I trained myself to be a bad sleeper, but I think it was the other way around. I think I read so much because I was a bad sleeper. I was bored and it was something I could do that didn't disturb anyone else. I was also a very light sleeper. Um, I would be awake at the slightest noise. We had an alarm that would go off, and I would be the furthest bedroom in the house from the alarm, and I would be the one who would wake up for it, the only one who would wake up for it some nights. And I'd have to go and wake other people up to deal with it. Um, that was till I was about 11 when we finally got rid of that. And yeah, I would wake up and not be able to go back to sleep. I tried all sorts of things. One of the best times in my life was during one of my university years. I can't remember which one it was, but my lectures fell so that most of the time I had a slot mid-afternoon when I could have a nap, about a 3-hour nap. I feel like I could do it every day. If it wasn't every day, it was most days. 2 to 3 hour nap in the middle of the day, and then I would go to bed at about 3 in the morning, wake up about 6 in the morning, and I'd have to do similarly in the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock, and wake up between 4 and 6. And that was all the sleep I needed, and I felt awake and I felt refreshed and invigorated on it. And then I came back to the world and got myself a normal 9 to 5 job eventually, and never learned how to sleep and feel refreshed again. So sleep problems are common in people with autism. And I am really interested in the fact that the gabapentin does seem to help mine. Some people feel that it's probably because it helps take away my pain, but I am very aware that the nights that I don't sleep well, I wake up in more pain than the nights when I do sleep well. When I first went on it, that first night, I went to bed in pain, and I woke up in the morning not in pain, and got out of bed and realised that I wasn't in pain, and that realisation was less a realisation I wasn't currently in pain, and more a realisation that I was always in pain. I didn't even notice how much I was always in pain until that pain went away. It was a ringing absence of pain. It was incredible, and the gabapentin no longer does that for me, but it did, and even now it manages my pain so well. But it's not for everyone, and I've been really lucky that I don't have bad side effects on it, which a lot of people do. Just this weird one where it helps me sleep, and I find that so interesting. And is this to do with the way my brain is wired? Is it something to do with being autistic? Yeah. So I've tried loads of different ways of trying to get myself to sleep. I've had sleep medications in the past which haven't really worked for me. They've maybe worked too well and turned me into a zombie the entire time, but still not got me to sleep. Or they've done literally nothing, or some of them have made it even harder for me to sleep. I have tried having really good sleep hygiene, so I stopped reading in the bed. Literally, the bed was just for sleeping. And again, that made it harder for me to sleep. I can't fall asleep if I haven't brushed my teeth, so if I wake up in the night and I really can't go back to sleep, I'll get up and go and brush my teeth again and come back to bed, have a glass of water, brush my teeth, come back to bed. Sometimes it will be so bad I'll go downstairs, have a cup of herbal tea, read for a bit, come back to bed, brush teeth, come back to bed. I tried cutting out screen time, didn't make much difference. I was told to cut out caffeine after 2 o'clock. Caffeine and sugar after 2 o'clock. I'd already cut caffeine out after 3. Neither made any difference. The sugar a little bit, but not enough. Cutting out having heavy carbs in the evening, reducing my carb level. That helped with some discomfort I maybe had around in the evenings, but it didn't help with the sleep. Having a hot bath and then going somewhere cool. It was a tip I picked up on Trust Me, I'm a Doctor, I think, and that seemed to help. But not sustainably. Similarly with some of the herbal teas that are recommended. There's one I really like. It's a particular blend. I like the flavour. If I have it more than 3 nights in a row, it doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't help me sleep at all. If I have it occasionally when I'm having a really bad night, it can help me get to sleep, but I seem to unlearn the connection between it helping me sleep. Like if I have a bad night with it, then it's not going to work again for a really long time. So it's frustrating. I have noticed if I am suffering burnout, which I have experienced a lot in my life, and I've never had confidence in my own diagnostic ability to call it burnout until more recently. I have even worse sleep, which is probably understandable. More inclination, less desire. More desire, more inclination, less ability, rather. Exercise, if I do a lot of fresh air walking, is quite good. It doesn't necessarily help me sleep, but the quality of the sleep I get is better. So I don't know if any of these are things that are going to be helpful for other people. I love my aerial circus, and that helps manage my pain, it helps manage my stress, and whether it's linked to the pain or not, I don't know, but it definitely, I sleep much worse when I'm not able to go to circus regularly. And I don't know how much of my inability to sleep is connected to my pain. I'm not lying there awake thinking, oh my goodness, I'm in so much pain, I can't sleep. But I am in pain. And maybe underneath everything else that's going on, that's why I'm not sleeping. And I do suffer with the shouties, when your head is shouting so loud at you, especially when my depression was bad, and all I would hear would be a constant barrage of voices in my head yelling about how awful a person I was and how terrible, and all those lovely things that depression tells you about yourself, that for anyone who's listening to those voices right now, it's not true. I used to suffer panic attacks at night, tied in with my mum dying when I was so young. So obviously that didn't help me sleep. But again, these were all side effects of it being quiet, not what was causing me to not be able to sleep. The racing thoughts probably didn't help, but they wouldn't start the second my head hit the pillow. They would start after a while of me lying there waiting to fall asleep, and it was always just this sense of waiting. Some nights, once my depression cleared up, for instance, I didn't have the racing thoughts, the shouties, and I still wouldn't sleep. I'd still be lying there thinking, well, I'm still awake. With the aerial circus, I'd practice in my head moves that we were working on. I'd consider, could we link these moves together? I'd build routines in my head. I'd tell myself stories. I build role-play game character backgrounds in my head just to keep myself occupied, because I'm bored and I'm lying there. And I'll count, and that doesn't help. I remember my dad trying to get me to count sheep, and that did not help. I do exercises a counsellor gave me once, where you squeeze your toes and relax them, and your whole foot and relax, and your calf muscles, and you move up your whole body that way, and then you squeeze your entire body tight and relax, and you do breathing with it, and none of it. Literally just gabapentin. And as I said, that hasn't, or did I say, well, it's not been working so well recently. It doesn't work so well when I'm experiencing bad burnout. I'm suffering bad burnout at the moment. It has definitely not been working so well. I am taking it, and then it's half an hour after I've taken it, and it feels like I haven't, and that's really difficult for me. And it's because I'm burnt out, and all of these techniques that I used to use still aren't doing very much. But then I got my autism diagnosis. I got some of that a bit under control. I let the mask come out a bit more. I allowed myself to be me more often. I'm trying to figure out what that looks like to to the outside world, what it even looks like to me, because I've had such a powerful mask for so long. I'm not entirely sure. And I mean, of course, that mask is part of me, but I've been letting some of the energy and effort that's gone into maintaining it, I've been letting that go into other things, and that's helped me sleep a bit better. And then things at work have intensified and I'm back into severe burnout, so it's not so helpful at the moment. But yeah, it's really common for autistic people to experience issues with sleep. The research I did when I was younger and curious about my sleep said that there's two types of insomnia. There is the one that means that you cannot fall asleep in the first place, but once you do fall asleep, you sleep well. And there's the other type, which means you fall asleep fine, but then you keep waking up. I was like, oh, I have both of those. I have two different types of insomnia. I don't think that's quite... I think the research I read was maybe a little bit, or the research I was doing was maybe a little bit too surface level. But I have done a little bit of research again more recently. I was aware that autistic people tend to suffer more with sleep problems, and research from 2019 that I saw earlier was saying that 80% of preschoolers with autism in America have sleep problems. 80% of autistic preschoolers have sleep problems. And, 50% of autistic people older than that. That's crazy high compared to the general population. And it takes an autistic person 11 minutes longer than a neurotypical person to fall asleep. And then something I found really interesting, because it ties in with my experience of having depression, which is to do with your REM sleep. The sleep that you get, the quality of your sleep you get, is not as good. So if you have good sleep, you wake up feeling refreshed. I need really good sleep to wake up feeling refreshed. Most of the time I don't get that. And when I had severe depression, it was much, much worse. And that's when I first came about this idea that the type of sleep you get is important. So apparently 15% of the time an autistic person is asleep is, on average, blah, 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 is spent in REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement, when you're dreaming most vividly, and most likely to have colour in your dreams. Yeah, so 15% in REM sleep. For a neurotypical person, that's on average 23%. Yeah, and I thought that was quite interesting. And I remember coming across something about this before, that the amount of REM sleep in people who are depressed is different to non-depressed people. My memory is that it was the other way around, that it was years ago, that you have more REM sleep, and that's why you wake up feeling more exhausted, because you're still running around the whole time in your head. But there's definitely something different going on in people's brains when they sleep, if they're mentally well or mentally ill or neurotypical or neurodiverse. It's all in our brains, right? So it's definitely an interesting area, and the research I've done today has shown that a lot of people are still talking about the fact that people with autism usually have comorbidities with things like ADHD and anxiety and depression, which can all stop you sleeping. So that could be why people with autism are less likely to sleep well. Or it could be, if you have ADHD, you might be on stimulant medicines, which can stop you sleeping well. Or you might self-medicate with caffeine. I mean, I massively self-medicate with caffeine, which I've put down to my asthma, because caffeine's a bronchodilator and a lot of asthmatics self-medicate, apparently. It's not a very effective one, but it's not, caffeine is slightly more common in asthmatics than non-asthmatics, and there is some benefit to it. But it could also be because when I am tired, I develop much, much more ADHD-like symptoms, like than trying to hold on to a train of thought, which I am really struggling with today. So they're saying, well, maybe it's some of the comorbidities. Fibromyalgia is more common in people with autism, and gastro distress issues. So maybe it's to do with pain and discomfort, but I'm not convinced. I think my sleep problems came about before my pain and discomfort issues. I think my sleep issues predate my mum dying. So, you know, my pain didn't start till I was in my teens. So there's definitely, for me, there's something else going on in my head. My depression didn't start that early. My sleep is probably one of my earliest points that you can say there is something different about this person was the way I slept or didn't sleep. And I put it down for years. I was sleep trained. My parents would let me cry for 20 minutes, and if I was still crying, they would come to me. But they reckon that 9 times out of 10, at 20 minutes dead, I would shut up. But I then spent many years believing that was why I didn't sleep well, to the point that I refused to sleep train my child. And he is 3 1/4 before he started sleeping through the nights. So yeah, a month or so ago. And he's still not every night. And I had people saying, you absolutely must sleep train him. And I was saying, I absolutely will not, because it's wrecked my ability to sleep. But both my siblings were sleep trained, and neither of them have the same level of sleep issues that I do. Both my younger siblings. Yeah. So if you have sleep trouble, you're not alone. There are things you can do, but they might not work for you, and they might not work for you every time. One of the best things I have found about having a 3-year-old was that as he started to sleep better and was only waking a couple of times a night, he was still getting up pretty much the same time every morning, about 6 o'clock every morning. And I took some advice that he'd always got up about then, and it was always get up at the same time every morning. Even at the weekends, even on the days you didn't go to work or school or whatever, get up at the same time in the morning, because your body will learn that is when it's going to get up, and then let your body tell you when it is time to go to bed. And for me, that meant for a very long time, I was putting him down at 7 o'clock. By 7:30, I'd be in bed. Around Christmas, he was sleeping enough that was more of an 8, 8:30, which my co-workers, most of them do 12-hour shifts. They'd still be at work and I'll be going to bed, or even in bed. They really struggled to understand why I would not do a 12-hour shift till I explained that. These days I can stay up till about 9. But that's been really helpful for me. It's helped. My body is telling me this is how much sleep you need right now. This is when you need to be going to bed. So get up at the same time every morning. For me, it has been more helpful than worrying about what I do before I come to bed, has been having a set time. This is the time I get up. And my body might not like how early it is, and believe me, I do not like that it is 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock is far too early for me. I am not a morning person. But mornings are much more bearable if I stick to that and I let my body tell me when to go to bed. Which isn't too far away, if I'm honest. I am really feeling the tired, which is why this video has been a bit longer, because I've had more trouble staying on track than normal. And also, as you can probably tell, sleep is something I'm pretty passionate about. It's been something that I've struggled with all my life, so it's something I've done a lot of reading on over the years. I've tried a lot of different techniques, and and I do find it really interesting. So take care, sleep well, and I'll see you soon.